Even today, the video hard to watch. 40 years later, President Reagan and 3 others shot outside of a hotel in Washington, D.C. Reagan would make a full recovery. His press secretary, James Brady, spent the rest of his life paralyzed and bound to a wheelchair. An attempted assassination carried out by a man who just wanted to gain the attention of actress Jodie Foster at the time. That man was John Hinckley Jr. A jury found him not guilty by reason of insanity, saying Hinckley needed treatment and not a lifetime in confinement. He spent 34 years at a hospital before he was allowed to move in with his mother in Virginia, where he would live under certain restrictions and psychiatric evaluations. Well, tonight, a federal judge has ruled that Hinckley can be freed from those restrictions as long as he remains mentally stable. This is a ruling not sitting well with an author who may know the life of President Reagan better than anyone else. Craig Shirley has written 4 biographies on President Reagan and has argued against Hinckley's release, and he is joining us live tonight. Craig, I'm glad to be talking to you. Thank you for taking the time.
You bet, Marnie. Thank you.
So Hinckley's lawyer said there is no evidence of danger and that his mental disease is in full remission and has been for 3 decades. Yet you call his unconditional release a travesty of justice. Why?
Of course. You know, if he was a threat to nobody, then why did they tell him to stay away from the families of the men he shot? Why did they tell him to stay away from the Reagan family? Why did they continue to ban some books he can read or movies he can have access to? In case after case after case, he's still a threat to society and deserves to be incarcerated. He's either insane, which means he should be in a mental institution, or he's guilty of murder of Jim Brady. And that's what the coroner said in 2016 when Jim died. By the way, he was an old friend of mine. But when he died, the coroner said that Brady died of homicide. So he either deserves to be behind bars as a criminal or in a mental institution as an insane individual. Either way, he should not be out on the street walking among us.
However, he has essentially been living full-time in the community for the last 5 years. He was with his mom. Yes. She passed away this summer. He was under supervision loosely with his therapist. Does this really change much, lifting these restrictions? No. He's already been out.
No, it doesn't change much. It just makes him more of a threat. He's no longer under Secret Service supervision. He can come and go as he please. He's now more of a threat, Marnie, to the rest of us in society, not less of a threat. The judge who made this ruling was a liberal Democrat. I think this was a way to stick it to Americans and stick it to the conservative movement, stick it to people who remember and revere Ronald Reagan, by Paul Friedman, who was a judge appointed by Bill Clinton. And there's no satisfaction in this ruling whatsoever.
How about the Reagan family or the Bradys? Have you talked to any of them how they feel about this?
No, I have not talked to any of the Reagan family, but I have talked to the Reagan Library, and of course they're beside themselves over this crazy decision. They see it as the farce for what it is and the travesty of justice for what it is. Justice was not served here. Let's face it. He killed a man. He wounded the President of the United States, which in itself is a federal crime. He wounded a Secret Service agent. He wounded a D.C. police officer, and yet he never served 1 day behind bars.
Craig, there are a lot of people who may not so readily remember 1981 when President Reagan was shot and this happened. How close did Ronald Reagan come to dying that day?
Marnie, he came astonishingly close to dying that day. He lost half the blood in his body. Had a devastator bullet burning in his chest, 1 inch from his heart. 1 lung had collapsed. He was near to going into shock, which is just a precursor to death itself. So he came extraordinarily close to dying that day. It was only through his own physical, his physical strength and the doctors at George Washington Hospital that pulled him through. But it was only through the grace of God and his own physical stamina and the doctors at George Washington.
Craig, we're out of time, but we appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Marnie.